Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to something new. We're doing something different on the channel now. This is maybe going to be its own show. Maybe it's going to be a mini series, but we're going to be full on documenting my life as a rider, what I come across when I'm out there traveling, whether it's a long distance ride. It's me and Shelby going for a quick cruise after work. We are going to document everything in between. And, I haven't landed on a name yet, so I can't give you guys a formal and proper introduction to the very first episode. But I don't have a name. I'm stuck between three right now. And honestly, what better way to land on one for the next episode than to just get some feedback from you guys? Right now, I'm stuck on these three. If you guys think of a better name, by all means, share it with me. But here are the ones that I'm on. I've got Street Glide Confessions, and also in no particular order with these. But Street Glide Confessions, Tanked and Tatted, or Throttle Therapy. I would say Mind If I Ride could compete as a potential name, but I'm going to actually get into why I am going to be separating the content I do here versus Mind If I Crash in the podcast a little bit later on into the episode. But Mind If I Ride cannot, it will not actually be the title of what we're going to be doing here. So today, obviously, I just want to kind of experiment in a way with this new style of content that I'm going to be bringing to you guys. And what better way than to focus this first ride on the impacts that riding culture and motorcycles, and especially Harley-Davidson, have played on making me the person I am today. And what better way than to just start at the very beginning? I think some of my earliest memories are of me and my grandpa Mickey on his Softail. There wasn't a time in my early childhood where there wasn't at any given time 1 to 2 Harley-Davidsons out in the garage. I mean, my grandpa Mickey would ride, and still does ride often. But yeah, I mean, I think honestly, my earliest memories are me playing in the driveway, riding my big wheel down the driveway while he's getting ready to head out on a ride, and just being amazed at how cool it was. There's so many better words to use than cool, but when speaking of a Harley, cool sometimes is just the best word, and I mean that as a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old. You see something like that from someone that you admire so much, and it's ingrained then in your DNA of who you are and who you are bound to become when you grow up, because there really is something so connected about people who ride motorcycles, and it's this bond that they share of life on 2 wheels, and the sacrifice that you have to make. And so at an early age, I knew that it was something that was going to be a continuous part of my life. And as I got older, my parents were incredibly supportive in anything that I wanted to do. And so pretty young, I don't know if I was 10 or 12. I was young. I know that. They got me my first dirt bike. And from there, it really was just, okay, I'm riding this thing any chance I get. And the nice thing with, dirt bikes, that's much different than the bagger that I have out in my garage now, is you can ride those most of the time, regardless of the season. There's no off season for a 125 trail bike. You can take that out whenever you want. And so I did just that. I think I don't know if it was Christmas or my birthday, but my 10th or 12th birthday, they bought me a 125 Suzuki trail bike, and it was like the dead of winter. So what do? We had a snow day. I know it was my birthday because school was still in. we had a snow day, and I ride this thing at night in the winter. My neighbors had bikes, had dirt bikes. All the kids in my neighborhood had them. It was like, honestly, it was like a riding club of juveniles on these dirt bikes. It was honestly insane. Like, if I saw it today as an adult, I'd be like, where are your parents? But yeah, we went out ripping, and that's like the first ride I ever had on a motorcycle that I was responsible for operating, is in a snowstorm at night, whipping down the roads of our neighborhood. And that really took off into something that I didn't know was going to play such a huge role in my life. But like I was saying, every kid in my neighborhood that I hung out with had a dirt bike. So we were riding together year round. We grew up where we had tons of trails that we could ride on. So you better believe if we weren't at school or doing something with our family, we were out on those trails, and we were riding. It did not matter. So looking back, I remember what that feeling felt like, that high that comes with taking off for a ride, the freedom that it entails. And as you get older, I think that feeling almost amplifies, right? Which you would think, because when you're a kid, you feel things so intensely, but you'd think it would be the opposite, right? That the feeling would dull out or wear off. But as you get older, the responsibilities of life just start to kind of weigh you down, that just getting out for those quick rides is such a release. But back to the story. So as I grew up, I always grew up having a dirt bike or a four-wheeler, whatever, out in the garage that I could be on when I needed to get out and clear my mind and just have some fun for a while. And looking back, I mean, every phase of my life thereon, as a kid, was always with the memories of me being out there and having fun. As we got older, we got a little riskier too, right? Like we stopped maybe riding the trails as much and started riding roads. Like it's crazy, right? Because me, an adult that has seen and done a ton, I would be shocked if I saw kids doing that today. But as time continued to go on, I got into high school, and then you're like, you got sports, and sports actually matter, and you got girlfriends, and you've got high school drama going on. It still was something that was always present. It just wasn't the most important thing like it was when I was a kid anymore. And that is when Sons of Anarchy came out. Shortly after I got into high school, I think the first episodes aired of Sons of Anarchy, and put the world in a chokehold. Now, I know before I even start on this topic that I am about to piss off some real deal writers, because Sons of Anarchy is either loved or quietly loved or loudly hated in Harley-Davidson culture. It still is. The show's been off for years, and I still hear it all the time. But when it came out, I mean, yeah, it definitely had an impact. And I was just a kid, so yeah, I was watching Sons of Anarchy. I'm going to be the first to admit I was involved with that show, and they were cool. They were the coolest dudes. They had dope bikes. They were the original Dynabros. And what Dynabros then become, I feel like ultimately is because of that show, whether it's admitted or not. So hate on me in the comments if you want. I'm speaking facts. So then I started to kind of pay more attention to, all right, so there's riders, and then there's real riders, right? Because they're not going to just make this show. And yeah, it's glammed up for Hollywood, but they're not just going to make this show if if some version of this doesn't actually exist out in the world? And then it spun out into me taking a deep dive into motorcycle culture and MC culture and everything that entailed. And it just, it would keep me occupied for hours, watching videos and listening to interviews. It would fascinate me as a teenager. Now, the only other part I really have to talk about my childhood and motorcycle culture is how I knew Harley-Davidson is going to be what I rode, right? Because let's be honest, most young kids, it's about speed, it's about aggression, it is about the sporty aspect of riding. So a lot of people were like, oh, my first bike is going to be a Ninja, or my first bike's going to be an R1, and it's like, I never cared for sport bikes. It doesn't mean I dislike them. I'm certainly not implying that. I was never drawn towards sport bikes. So I knew as a youngin' that I was going to be riding a Harley-Davidson of some kind, right? It was just a matter of figuring out what. Now, the biggest issue of being a young man who has champagne taste is I'm balling on a beer budget. So some years pass as I'm figuring things out. But then one day I get a call from a very close friend of mine asking me to come work with him at Harley-Davidson. And I took that instantly. I was like, what? I get to be around Harleys all day? Sign me up. And it was one of the best choices I ever made. One, it truly did elevate my career and my knowledge of being a sales manager and a finance manager, which is obviously, if you guys don't know, what I do for a living. But it also meant that I got to interact with the coolest motorcycles in the world. And so I would get my daily fix every single day. I'm around these motorcycles more than I'm around my family, which is crazy.
Boys, maybe I'm tripping, but I swear when I look up the weather and I see it's high 70s, low 80s, for some reason in my brain I constitute that as sweater weather. And then I get out here and I'm riding and I'm like, what the fuck? Very much hot. Very much hot. I guess I think back of when I lived in Florida. And 80 degrees when you're used to Florida heat is different. Maybe that constitutes sweater weather. It's beautiful out today. Not a ton of people out on the roads, which, look, we live so close to Cedar Point that at this time of the year, traffic is insane. However, I am happy that I can ride and not have to worry about people who aren't familiar with the area pulling out in front of me, or, obviously being focused on traffic and not the bike. So, oh, Red Bull down. Water and Red Bull. I'm just gonna fuel this ride today, boys. I treat my saddlebags like the garbage cans. I gotta stop doing that shit. It sucks though, since moving here, I don't know anybody that rides other than I got one buddy and he's working, so it's weird. We're trying to find more people in my area that ride, so we got somebody to ride with. But it's beautiful out. Looks like we aren't getting rain. Let's fucking keep ripping the hog, boys. Let's go. The most gangster thing about me is my friendship bracelet from Mia. Thank you, baby.
There's something so fascinating about the culture of our customers when I was working there that I miss. And Shelby asked me about it, if I miss working for Harley. And I do in a healthy way. Not like I would ever go back to it, just because, the seasons, it can be inconsistent. But but I do miss that connection that I shared with our customers and the bond that we all had. But to get back on track of the timeline of things for me and riding, once I started there, I got to feel out pretty much every bike that Harley had made within the last 20 years. And I got to understand what made sense for me, and what type of riding I was going to be doing once I did own a motorcycle. So I tossed around all kinds of bikes when considering what to get for my first bike. But ultimately, I landed on a bagger. It just made the most sense for me and what I plan to do with it, which is what you're seeing now. And that's when riding took over my life. If there was a free moment in the day, I was getting on the motorcycle. And I remember taking the test. I mean, I remember everything like so vividly, but it was all so new and exciting, right? Like I had said earlier, I had ridden on a dirt bike for years. And so I totally understood the basics, but it is a different ball game being out there on the road for hours at a time and interacting with traffic, right? And people and the elements, right? It's so different. And it was always exciting. It was always something new, whether it was me riding to work, which could, be a long ride, or it was just a quick 30-minute trip. It was always so much fun that I was addicted to it, and I had to ride and ride more. And eventually, the thought occurred that why don't I just document this? Like, people have been asking, where's the content? What's going on? And I haven't really had an answer, but it's because if I have free time, instead of creating podcasts, I'm out on the bike and I'm ripping and running. So that does bring me to my next point of why Mind If I Ride is absolutely not in contention for one of the names of this show. And that is because Mind If I Crash, although very important to me and always will be, the logo does kind of look like it's a motorcycle club. And although the content is unrelated, I don't want to have that logo or a logo similar to blasted all over this riding style content, because it might give the wrong impression. And I'm not saying I'm going to be in a club one day, but if I ever am, or I have friends who watch my content but also ride that are in a club, it might seem like I'm repping something that I'm not. So I didn't want to explain it at the very beginning of the episode. Obviously, the episode needed to develop a little bit more before I was just going to up and drop that on you guys. But, it is something that needed to be said, because I know I'm not the only person that thought Mind If I Ride would be a cheeky title to what we're doing here with these episodes. So now that you guys know about me and my history with Harley-Davidson, it's probably important to let you guys know what you're watching and what I'm riding. So I'm currently on a 2015 Harley-Davidson Street Glide. I absolutely love it. I've got 14-inch bars on there, and I've got some plans for the future that we'll probably get into in the coming episodes. But I love it. Mysterious Red, she's my baby, and ultimately it's something I'm able to continue to develop as a rider, but also something I can keep long term as I grow into the bike. So I'm super excited. Equipment wise, I've got a GoPro. The actual model is a GoPro Hero 13, or a 13 Black, sorry. I had to look at it. Incredibly solid footage from something so small. It's funny. I remember when GoPro first came out, and I remember asking my buddies who ironically, the first time I was introduced to a GoPro was on a trail riding day with some of my buddies. But I remember him having it hooked up to his helmet and being like, what even is it? Like, how do you know it's recording? How do you watch the footage? I couldn't wrap my head around it. But it's impressive how far they've come. You know, I've got a forward and backward facing camera. It's shot in 4K, beautiful quality. The stabilization's amazing on this thing. I can hook it up to my helmet, or I can hook it up to the bike. I prefer having it on the bike. I feel like it looks a little bit better. It focuses in on me and not so much of the things around me. You know, it's a powerful camera, but it's definitely meant to have something nearby that it can latch onto. The stabilization's insane. No matter what type of pavement I'm on, this thing stays locked in on me and keeps a crystal clear image while doing it. So if you are an athlete or a rider and have considered documenting what you do, I would absolutely suggest sticking with the GoPros. I considered the Action 360 as well, but I don't know. Something about it, there's so many... There's just so much that you can get because GoPro's been around for so long that it made sense, right? I mean, and don't get me wrong. You can drop a bag on these things, but it's worth it. If it's worth it, if it's something you know you're going to stick with. And, you know, whether I'm continuously doing these episodes or I'm using it to film motorcycle vlogs, I am going to use this and use it often, which I'm definitely excited about. Gear-wise, I don't know what brand my vest is. I've had that for a while now. I got it at Bike Week, but my helmet, I've got an AGV K3 that I use. You know, if I'm going to be taking a ride in a long ride, or I'm going to be riding in, you know, potentially unknown elements, whether it's rain or high wind, I'll wear my full face. In this video, I'm wearing my Crazy Al's beanie style helmet in matte black, which, I don't know, both of those helmets, I think my beanie style helmet was probably $250, maybe $300. I bought my AGV, my K3 for around $350, maybe $400. I'm not super deep in my pockets with either of those, but Shelby's got a modular helmet, and I also have the same modular helmet. I don't wear my modular a ton, just because it's not as cool as the AGV. So if I'm wearing a full face, I typically just put that one on. Now, I do like fashionable things, so my modular is probably not a show-stopping piece, I will say that. But let me know, guys, if you guys ride with a modular, let me know what your brand is, what you're using. Any helmet, let me know down below what it is that you guys are using on your rides. I'm definitely curious. I've been watching some videos on modulars, which I will say, I think the brands that we have are maybe a little garbage or uncool, because I have yet to see the ones we own in any videos that people are doing, suggesting or recommending helmets. But yeah, guys, that is what I'm riding, that is what I'm wearing, and that's what I'm using to capture everything that you guys are seeing here. It's been really nice getting back into it. So you guys, without anything else for this episode, we're going to call it here. Once again, please let me know what you guys would like to see moving forward, whether it's topics. Please weigh in on the name situation. I do need help there. Help me choose a name, please, so I can do a proper introduction, not the sorry excuse of an introduction you saw at the beginning of this episode. That's all for me, guys.